Bodybuilding rivalries are a terrific method to get people interested in the sport. Relying purely on the premise that the venture will sell a large number of tickets for an event like the Olympia is just insufficient to generate a significant degree of interest. To sell huge concerts like the Olympia to the people, there must be some form of story arc that will pique spectators' interest. It was the rivalry between Phil Heath and Kai Green in 2015, but
you see the roundness in the muscle from the shoulder to the chest.
Hey! Oh!
Here we go.
Spread out! Spread out!
But first, there was the feud between Ronnie Coleman and Jay Cutler.
Here comes the enemy, Ronnie Coleman.
Surprise! Ready to do it again? Oh yeah.
So this is the guy that I fought for
a couple years.
not 8 years.
Now he all by himself.
Yeah.
Running the show.
Me, Ronnie Coleman.
The two bodybuilding veterans competed against each other for quite some time back in the early 2000s.
I want to talk a little bit about my relationship with Ronnie Coleman. There's lots of comments. I get a lot of comments and questions about, what it was like competing in that era, and I feel like that was like the highlight of the years of bodybuilding in the Olympia.
At that time, Ronnie Coleman was king of the world and was on his way to becoming the historic champion that he's known as today. But Jay Cutler was hot on his heels and was proving himself to be a formidable opponent to the Olympia King. This sparked a rivalry that would fuel interest in the Olympia for years to come. But did Jay Cutler actually hate Ronnie Coleman, or was the hatred all just a fabrication?
A lot of the show, it was like me and Ronnie always, all the time, and people questioned, because the magazines back then built us up to kind of hate each other. And the truth of the matter is I think we had respect for each other, but we weren't really necessarily friends. We didn't call each other on the phone.
Ronnie loved to lift extremely heavy weights and probably lifted too heavy for too long without a significant break. Gradually over time, this started to destroy his soft tissues, joints, spine, hips, etc. The top powerlifters and Olympic weightlifters will cycle their training because training with heavy weights all the time will cause injuries and orthopedic problems. Jay Cutler seemed to have used more moderate weights and in a more high-rep traditional bodybuilding routine, as opposed to Ronnie's low-rep super heavy powerlifting style training. Their training disparities, Ronnie Coleman and Jay Cutler's spectacular clashes, cemented their rivalry as the greatest of all time. But just because these two titans share 12 Sandows doesn't mean they received the same training. Philosophies. In this section, we compare and contrast respective training approaches. Coleman is a rare pro bodybuilder that works out each major muscle group twice per week, which is double the frequency of other champs. Cutler follows a more typical once per week schedule for body parts, but he makes an exception for the back. Like Coleman, Cutler divides his back training into a thickness workout and a width workout, including the latter in his shoulder routine. Cutler states, "I'm a volume trainer and have always been." In his back thickness routine alone, Cutler often performs 7 or 8 exercises and 20 to 24 working sets. Neither guy is interested about following the exact textbook form suggested by personal trainers. Indeed, Cutler claims that it would be dangerous for him to do so. So instead, he uses the best form for his physique discovered through years of trial and error. This may mean a little extra motion and even what others may label bad form. but he does this to better focus on the targeted area, never to make reps easier. Similarly, Coleman has discovered the motions that best emphasize muscles, sometimes adding a little extra jerk or sway. Cutler has spent more time training alone than with a partner recently, owing to his busy travel schedule. He sometimes trains with a partner and sometimes doesn't. And even when he trades sets with someone, the other guy isn't a TP in the traditional sense. Cutler does his workouts his way, and if his friends want to tag along and help change weights and spot him on his heaviest sets, he's welcome. Coleman worked with partners in the early days of his bodybuilding career, but the man who would be king soon got too strong for anybody to keep up with him. Whether at home or on the road, he seldom swapped sets with anyone. Cutler explains the reality behind his competition with Coleman.
When was the prime of like your bodybuilding era, like when you like loved it the most? And that was honestly the battles with Ronnie. And once Ronnie was gone after I beat him in 07, it wasn't as fun. I mean, people sit there and talk about the friendship of Heath and all this stuff, but it just wasn't the same. I mean,
Coleman and Cutler had one of the most fierce rivalries in Mr. Olympia history. Although Coleman defeated Cutler numerous times, his determination paid off as he overcame the legendary Coleman in 2006. Jay Cutler once opened up on his YouTube channel about his relation with Ronnie Coleman, and he disclosed how publications at the time had a significant part in shaping the public perception of their relationship.
People question because the magazines back then built us up to kind of hate each other.
Did Jay Cutler and Ronnie Coleman detest one another? This subject may not be as essential anymore, but it was previously a major concern among bodybuilders. The fierce rivalry they had on stage didn't reveal much since it was a professional platform. There was no social media back then, so a person couldn't admit his feelings to millions at once, as in present situations. Cutler revealed why people thought Ronnie and Jay hated each other. He said, "You know, people question because the magazines back then built this up to kind of hate each other. And the truth of the matter is I don't think we did. We had respect for each other, but we weren't really necessarily friends. We didn't call each other on the phone. He had it, but my first experience, just so you guys know, was I completed the Olympia first time in '99. Ronnie won his second that year at Mandalay Bay. And his first one-on-one experience over call was when Ronnie called him to congratulate him for winning the Night of the Champions.